All right, we're live. It's the Android Headline Show, episode 91. My name is Jeremiah. I'm joined tonight by Alex from the site. You want to say what's up, man?
What's up, everybody?
So Nick was going to be here. He had some family stuff come up, so he wasn't able to make it tonight. He was bummed because he just got back from CES. When did he get back? A couple days ago.
Yeah, it was like Thursday.
Yep. So he wanted to be on the show and talk about just being there live and seeing all this stuff hands on, and he did that great interview with Carl Pei from OnePlus. So he'll be with us. He'll be back again next week. We'll get a chance to chat with him on some of that stuff. But we still got a packed show tonight. We're excited, man. It's kind of the week after CES is, a little bit of a hangover time. Like, there's not a whole lot of big news breaking, but we're starting to see some rumors and some stuff creep out ahead of MWC, which is in a couple of weeks. And just kind of, like I said, CES hangover, so to speak. But we did have some pretty interesting stuff about Sony this week, talking about their maybe getting out of the handset business, that they are not really making money in the mobile space, so they may be getting out of here, which would suck because they make awesome phones. The Project Ara Developers Conference kicked off today, so we'll talk a bit about that. I watched the first hour or so of the keynote, and it was really interesting, man. I'm so excited for Project Ara. Hardware stuff is all rumors that we're seeing, stuff that should be announced at or around MWC, or even there's a new Xiaomi phone that I think is supposed to be announced tomorrow. So
It's going to be announced in like 3.5 hours.
Oh, right, with the time change.
Yeah,
with the time zone difference.
It's 1 a.m. Eastern, because we have Justin and John working on that tonight.
Cool.
They're announcing two phones. I'm guessing the Mi 5 and the Note 2. One is Snapdragon 810, the other one's 801.
Okay. So we'll jump into both of those then. I have the Mi 5 on here. I didn't put the Note 2 on here, so.
I don't know if it's confirmed, but that's what people were thinking. Because there's two devices. We just don't know what the other one is.
Yeah. So we'll go over some stuff on that. I also want to talk about this security patch, the WebView security patches deal that came out like 2 days ago, where Google is not updating security patches for WebView in like Jelly Bean and other devices. It's kind of ridiculous, and I want to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, it's blown out of proportion.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a big deal, but it's not, and really, it's out of Google's control anyways. So there's no sense in getting ticked off at them, because they're not updating old firmware anymore. So, or at least just this one portion of it. So they may still release updates, but not for this particular WebView. But yeah, so let's jump into some news, man. First things first. Even before we talk about Sony, I want to just mention this briefly because it broke tonight. We saw that Samsung may be in talks to buy BlackBerry for just a little over $7 billion. All of a sudden, everybody on all the blogs everywhere was talking about this rumor. BlackBerry came out pretty quickly and said, nope, we're not talking to Samsung. We don't know what you're talking about. And it was funny because their shares shot way up, and then they said, nope, we're not talking to Samsung. That's a lie, and their shares plummeted back down to where they were.
Yeah,
and then Samsung.
I would have let it sit for a couple of days and then say that, deny it,
Right. Or just let it go.
Yeah.
And then Samsung came out shortly after that and said, no, we're not talking to BlackBerry. There's no truth to these rumors. There was some speculation that Samsung might be interested in BlackBerry for their like security portfolio and to kind of beef up what Samsung is doing with Knox. But that is not the case. So don't believe everything you read on the internet. I know it's shocking. It's shocking, but don't believe everything you read on the internet.
I think it might still be true. Just they didn't want anybody to know yet, because it came out of Reuters, and it's not like they're known for putting out bogus rumors. Most of the stuff they put out is true, whether it's not true now or it becomes true later on, like a year from now or something. It's not like DigiTimes. Half their stuff is true, half their stuff isn't.
Right, that's a good point. And it would not be the first time that companies have, straight up lied about this stuff. That happens all the time too, where they'll just say, "No, this is not true," and it actually is, but for whatever reason, they feel like they need to keep it, kind of quiet. So they may be in talks. I don't really see a benefit for Samsung outside of maybe some of the security stuff.
Yeah, that's all I see is for Knox, and maybe they're gonna, bring Knox to Tizen or something like Samsung Knox to Tizen. That's really all I can see, because I don't think they're gonna go back to physical keyboards. I don't think anybody is.
No, and it just, even with the security stuff with Knox, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Again, that's just me. I don't see what benefit Samsung would get. I know BlackBerry would, they'd be happy to sell to somebody at this point, but
yeah, they probably want them for parts. I think anybody would want them for parts, actually.
Yeah, and maybe like patents. Maybe BlackBerry sent out a bunch of patents.
I'm pretty sure they are. I know Nokia had a bunch and Motorola had a ton.
Excuse me. Right. Yeah. And so that may be what Samsung is looking at too. But as of right now, go ahead.
I was going to say, before we jump into Sony stuff, there's another piece of, kind of breaking news. The Yoda 2 is coming to T-Mobile.
Nice. That got a lot of really cool reviews at CES.
Yeah, I heard from, I think it was Android Central CES coverage, their interview with them, that it was going to be coming to a U.S. carrier this spring. As soon as I said that, when I said a U.S. carrier, like it's going to be T-Mobile or AT&T, and it was T-Mobile. So.
Yeah. So the Yoda 2, if you're not familiar with this, it's like a double-sided phone. The one side has got
the e-ink on the back.
Yep. So it's got a standard. I don't remember if it's a LCD or what kind of display it is on the front.
I'm pretty sure it's AMOLED.
And then it's got a e-ink display on the back that'll show like notifications and just basic stuff. Yep. So you can use it, kind of both sides at once use them for different things. Use it to conserve battery life. There's a lot of different uses for it.
I think if you use the e-ink, I think it lasts up to like a week or something like that. I think it might be longer than that. I can't remember what they said the number was.
Oh, and I wouldn't be surprised, man. That's
it's e-ink. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know did Nick get any hands-on with that? I don't remember.
No, we couldn't find them at CES, even though they were there.
It's a big show floor, but I read there were a lot of people that got their hands on it and were really skeptical. They were like, "Yeah, this is just a gimmick." And then it said, "Hey, this is actually a pretty cool phone."
Yep.
So
it was the same thing with the first Yoda phone that came out last year. Everybody thought it was just a gimmick, and they took in a bunch of feedback from reviews and stuff like that. Came back with the Yoda 2, and it's even better than before.
Yeah. So it's a cool concept, and so I'll be interested to see what once it comes to T-Mobile, what carrier, if any other carriers pick it up, and kind of how well it sells.
The way they stated it, it sounds like it's exclusive. So.
And it might be. It wouldn't be the first time that T-Mobile has picked up just a weird overseas phone and sold a couple 100,000 of them, and that's it. So
Yep. I mean, for Yodaphone, it's a big deal because it's only their second phone. It's not like it's some phone HTC made for Asia that's coming over here, like the Butterfly 2. I wish that they would come over here, but this is pretty much a brand new company.
right, right.
And to get to the U.S. on a carrier this quick is a pretty big deal.
Yep. And that says something about what they're doing. That it's people are interested, and that T-Mobile is interested. So
I hope that Panasonic Lumix CM1 comes to a carrier, because that thing's gonna be like $1,000.
yeah, but dude, it looks cool. It's got that giant camera on the back.
The cameras, I think they said it's about as good as a DSLR. So if you're a big camera person, it's worth $1,000.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. So we'll keep dibs on that when the Yodaphone 2 actually, is announced and released on T-Mobile. But
well, it's been announced for T-Mobile. It's just not a release date yet. It just says
okay.
spring.
Oh, gotcha. You're right. So just no official dates on it yet.
Yep.
Cool. So the Sony stuff, man. What do you think about Sony getting out of the mobile division, or selling off their mobile division or whatever?
They're also thinking about selling off their TV division too, because neither one is making money. I guess only one is making money is cameras and the film. Even after that hack.
And PlayStation.
The mobile, I'm not really surprised because I can't remember the last time they've made a profit in mobile. And with them putting out 2 phones every year and it taking, well, the Z3 didn't take 6 months to get to the US, but it was still kind of slow to get over here. I mean, it's the same thing we say pretty much every year or every time they get ready to announce a new phone. Is we only need 1 flagship a year. We need it on all 4 carriers. We need better marketing, which I have seen that improve since I'd say IFA. I think is when the Z3 was announced. So they're starting to get it, but not quite. Because here in the US, most people, when they're looking for a new phone, they don't look to Sony because it's just not available. I mean, it is, but people on Verizon and Sprint, they can't just pick up a Z3 and put it on there. And a lot of people, if they're still on AT&T Mobile, they don't want to buy a unlocked phone, even though there's not really a difference when you're on AT&T and T-Mobile, especially if you're going.
People don't even.
Especially if you're paying it off, the installment plans instead of doing a contract.
Yeah, and I don't even think people know that Sony makes phones. Yeah. I was out the other day, and I don't remember what I was doing, but I went to show somebody something on my screen, and they saw the Sony logo on the top of my phone, and she says, "Oh, I didn't know Sony makes phones. They made phones for years."
I didn't know they made them. I didn't know they made them until I started working here.
Yeah. And so now you've got the Z3V on Verizon. You've got some of them on available through T-Mobile, but you're right. People just they don't know about it, or if they do, they don't want to spend the money.
Sony makes great phones and tablets. Sony stuff is always a little bit more. That was the same issue with the Vio brand, and probably part of the reason why they had to sell that off. But the Z3 Compact, that's a great phone, especially for a mini phone. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is putting flagship specs into a smaller phone. It's 4.6 inches, I think, and it still has a Snapdragon 801. I think it's 2 gigs of RAM though. Same storage though. Same 21 meg or 20.7 megapixel camera. They make good stuff. It's just not widely available, which is the biggest issue.
And that's what bums me out about them getting, even the rumor of them getting out of the handset business and selling their mobile division. It feels like they haven't even really tried.
It seems like
make an effort.
It seems like this past year they've tried harder, at least in the U.S. I know that's where the biggest issues that we come up with is, because that's where we are. But if they can go down to just 1 flagship a year, maybe do like the Z4 at Mobile Congress and then the Z4 Compact at IFA or something like that, or even vice versa. I think it would be much better for them instead of, having a new one every few months. Because people are just going to keep waiting and waiting so they have the next best thing, even though it's only going to be the next best thing for like 2 months.
And the other thing that you run into, this has plagued Sony across all of their lines, whether was laptops for a while or TVs or phones, is you pay like a Sony tax. There's a premium just for buying a Sony device because it has the Sony name on it. You pay an extra $100, $200, or whatever. So if they could, bring the costs down in addition to making these phones more widely available.
Well, the Z3 Compact and the Z3 are about the same price as every other flagship out there. I think it's like $599, and most flagships are $649 off contract. So there's that. The Z3 Compact I'd like to see a little bit cheaper though. I think it's like $529 or something like that. I'd like to see it under 500 because for that would be a really good sell. But yeah, Sony. I mean, just look at the Smartwatch 3. That thing is $300.
Yep.
I mean, I get that it has Wi-Fi, GPS, all that other stuff that a lot of these other watches don't have. But it's the most expensive smartwatch, and it's not the best looking one.
Or even the best one,
Yeah. The battery life is. Yeah, the battery life is the best, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And that doesn't cut it, man. It just doesn't cut it.
Nope.
So, I mean, I'm bummed about this because I want to see them. They make great phones, and I want to see them do well. A little selfishly, I want to continue to have a Sony phone available. I really like the one that I have, and I would continue to buy phones from them for what I want a phone to do. It's perfect. So, if they get out of mobile phones, then I don't have that option.
Between that camera and the battery life on the Z3, it's hard to go wrong with that thing. Same thing with the Z3 Compact.
Well, and I've got the Z2, and I would say the exact same thing. The camera's great, battery life's great. I never have a problem getting to the end of the day. I've always got 30 or 40% left.
Yep.
16 hours off the battery and 5 hours of screen on time. 30% left on the battery. It's crazy. So.
And the Z3 is even better than the Z2, I think by 30% or something like that. Because the Z3V is right in the middle, and that's the one I spent the most time with. And I used that one for about, I think, a month or so. That battery was crazy. I even used it when I was going to, I think it was the Droid Turbo event last fall, and the battery was amazing, even on all, like 4G LTE all day.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. And there are quite a few other manufacturers that haven't figured out how to do that yet. So.
And the waterproofing.
Yes. Now I hate the flaps, but the next one, the Z4, is supposed to be
flapless.
Waterproof. Yep. With no flaps. Flapless.
That's like the biggest issue I had, and the biggest reason why I loved wireless charging on the Z3V, which is wireless charging was exclusive to Verizon.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not on the Z3, I'm pretty sure.
So yeah, man, it's it'd be a bummer if they get out. We haven't heard anything except rumors at this point.
Yeah, because I'm a big Sony fan.
Yeah. And they are still making money in some of their divisions, but
I think the movies and stuff is the biggest besides PlayStation, even after the hack.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think it would be not just for me personally, selfishly, but I think it'd be just for the whole smartphone space. It'd be a bummer for Sony to get out. More options and more competition are better. And when you have a major player like this drop out, now there's a lot of other good stuff coming, especially out of China.
Yep.
But more options are better than less options, and Sony's doing a lot of things right. So
Yeah,
I don't want to see him go anywhere.
especially that camera. I just can't get over that camera.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I read an article this week that I don't remember where I read it. It might have been The Verge. But the guy was saying that he doesn't want an iPhone, but he noticed even just at CES, that people with iPhones were able to take better pictures faster. Where he had to stop and play with the settings to get the camera, get the shot just right. And I don't remember what phone he said he had, but it was an Android device. And these Sony cameras are some of the only ones I've seen that compete. So that's
The M8, that one had a really fast shutter, but because of low resolution, nobody wanted to talk about it. But it had a really fast shutter, like I'd say almost instant. At least when it first launched. I don't know what software has done to it since then, but that's how it was when it launched.
and we'll get to the HEC, the HEMA rumors, but that's supposed to have a 20.7 megapixel camera on it.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, yes, Sony is in more phones.
Yep.
Because for a while, they were like holding exclusive on their 20.7 megapixel chip or sensor.
And now we're seeing it pop up on more devices.
Yeah, like the Droid Turbo.
And that's going to be a major focus for manufacturers moving into 2015 and forward. Is really getting that right, because it's super important to more and more people.
That's really the only issue with AOSP devices right now, like the Nexus 6, the Moto X. Droid Turbo isn't really that bad because it's got that 20.7 megapixel camera from Sony, but just about every other AOSP device has a mediocre camera. Sometimes it's okay, but most of the time it isn't.
Yeah, and it's like they're not bad, they're good, but by no means are they great.
Yeah, if you compare it to like a year ago, or even 2 years ago, it's great. But if you compare it to other phones that are coming out right now, or even within the last 6 months, it's not that great.
Right. So that'll be a big thing for manufacturers to focus on, and hopefully Sony as well. But the next big kind of groundbreaking deal in the mobile space is Project Ara. And if you're not familiar with Project Ara, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but it must be a good one because you're missing out. Project Ara is Google's modular telephone or modular mobile phone project. Basically, they put together an endoskeleton. You slide. It's just a shell, so to speak. You slide modular units into it to build yourself a phone. You can mix and match if you want a really good camera, if you want really good battery life, if you want a really good screen, if you want a faster processor. If you don't need some of that stuff, if you don't care about some of that stuff, you can downgrade certain things, invest more money in different modules. That project has been ongoing now for a couple years, and the second, I guess it's been about a year and a half, but the second developers conference started today in California, and it was really interesting. I watched the first hour of the keynote, and as they kind of walked through the changes, they said at the last developers conference, I don't remember when the last Project Ara conference was, but they said that by January of 2015, they wanted to have a working prototype. They wanted to have private beta so that they could start getting devices out into the developers' hands, and they wanted a fully working MDK, which is the module developer kit, and they've got that. They made it all happen. The hardware is fully done. It uses electropermanent magnets to hold the modules in place. But that's all done. The hardware is complete. The software, the firmware is not yet. That's what they're still working on. The modules themselves still trying to, make things work better for the actual modules. Some of the stuff like the battery life, they haven't been able to get those battery modules as efficient as they want them. But one of the things they talked about was those battery modules, and you can have multiple battery modules even. They found a way to make that work. They can charge independently of each other. They don't interfere. The currents don't interfere with each other if you have more than one battery module. So, again, because everything's hot swappable, you could carry extra battery modules, and your battery starts running low, you're in a place where you don't necessarily need your camera. Take the camera module out, put a new battery module in. The first probably 20 minutes of the keynote, they just talked about how this is going to be groundbreaking, because they not only have open sourced the software, the firmware, stuff like the kernel source is all open source, and it's already up on GitHub, so you can go download that. You can go poke around with that if you know what you're doing. But the hardware is all open source also. The modular developer kit it teaches you how to build an electropermanent magnet. So if you're a manufacturer who wants to start making these modules or building endoskeletons for this project, for these mobile phones, they're teaching you how to do it. So like they've invented this hardware. They haven't necessarily invented all the technology, but they've tweaked it and worked it out to work with what they're building. And then they're teaching you how to make it. So it's pretty crazy, man, the stuff that is in this MDK, because it's really, truly open source hardware as well, because they want this to be available to everybody, and they want it to change the way we think about mobile phones. I mean, some of the concept stuff that they were talking about today, the modules being specifically built for different industries. So I think one of the examples was you could get a module that was programmed to give you like an eye doctor, ophthalmologist. I'm not saying that correctly. I know I'm burning that. But like you could get a module that would be able to take readings off your eye and tell you if there's something wrong with your eye. Just like when you go to the eye doctor. So like it's not just, oh yeah, I could have this sweet smartphone. There's like specific things that could be built for different industries. It's wild, man. Absolutely crazy. So that developers conference, like I said, it kicked off today at 11 Eastern time, and I watched the first hour or so of that keynote, and then they started nerding out on like some of the crazy math involved with building the hardware for like all the electrical components and stuff that are involved, and I didn't understand all of it, so but the initial keynote was just, they were kind of laying the groundwork for what they had done, and the fact that the hardware is ready. The software is still being worked on, but they're proceeding as expected, and they're hitting all of their milestones. Everything is on track. They're going to be launching in Puerto Rico this year, and I don't know why Puerto Rico, but they're going to be launching their first kind of like market test in Puerto Rico.
What they also said is they're gonna have like like food truck style shops where you can go and buy these modules, which I thought was kind of funny and maybe a little bit racist.
Yeah. I don't know if it was racist, but it is kind of an interesting concept. I could see them being sold all over the place. Like you could walk into whatever retail location and they'll just have, like when you check out, you got candy bars and gum and whatever magazine racks and Project Aura modules. You know.
Like, yeah,
Um,
I went to the grocery store and picked up a new camera for my phone.
right, and that's their goal. Like that's what they want to do with this stuff. They didn't really give like a concrete reason of why Puerto Rico. They just said it's a U.S. territory, so it's under FCC jurisdiction. So the regulations, the regulatory stuff that they're using for ARA wouldn't be any different in Puerto Rico than in the mainland U.S. They've got Puerto Rico has designated free trade zones, yada yada. There was no real like specific reason why Puerto Rico, but they did talk about needing to test the market with this for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, they want to see how well it's going to sell. Just like, are consumers even going to take to this concept? Are they going to understand how to use it? Is it going to be durable to hold up? But also, like, we as consumers say we want the latest and greatest, the newest, crazy, amazing thing, but there's really only a small subset of people that want that. I've even seen my own tastes change in that. There was a point in time where I would have said, yes, give me this thing right away. Whereas now, I'd still pick one up, but I wouldn't use a Project Aura device as my daily driver. It'd be like, because I want something that's going to work. I can get through the day. The battery's not going to die. I know it's not going to glitch out and randomly reboot on me 10 times or just turn off and not turn on again. Like those kind of like beta bugs are going to pop up, and so they got to figure out if this is even a viable concept, because what they're talking about doing, what they're thinking about doing sounds amazing, but they've also got to sell it. They've got to sell it to consumers. I'm already in line waiting because I want this thing, and especially because maybe not at first. It won't be incredibly cheap, but after a little while, it's going to be so cheap that it's a no-brainer. You're talking like $50 for the endoskeleton, and then you buy the modules separately. But the modules themselves won't be but $50 or $100, if that, starting out. They haven't given any specific prices. They did say the endoskeleton they wanted to be $50, but something crazy is happening over at Alex's house. You guys watch the basketball game?
Probably.
Okay. You mentioned the Pistons playing tonight, so I figured it was probably that's what it was.
Well, they already lost.
Oh, did they? Okay. Bummer. So some of this hardware stuff, this Spiral 2 hardware. So they call them spirals. Is like each step along the path. Spiral 1 was the device that they showed off last year that wouldn't even boot up. This Spiral 2 is the completed hardware with everything working properly. It'll boot. It'll make phone calls. It has a 3G data connection. The camera works. So the initial Spiral 2 hardware, it's got a 720p display. It's and an NVIDIA Tegra K1 chip. So that's just what they're going with right now. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. I took a screenshot from the developer conference when they put this up in the slideshow, just to kind of look at what the initial hardware looked like. I didn't see yet. I just didn't get a hands-on or any screen time with this. They said that they had working devices on site for developers to play with too, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, man, I've been talking about Project Aura for 10 minutes. What do you think?
I think it's interesting, but I wonder what's gonna happen when like everybody's buying Project Aura. Is all these other OEMs just gonna stop making like the G4, the S6, all this other stuff, and just go and make modules.
Eventually, I think so. It'll be like the shift from desktops to laptops, or when a couple years ago everybody had tablets, and then tablets were slowly replaced by large screen smartphones, and tablet sales are flat now. It'll slowly shift. I think there will still be a market for for integrated devices that aren't modular like Aura. There'll be like security applications like BlackBerry,
Probably go the same way as BlackBerry too.
Yeah, eventually, but there'll be cases for that where for security reasons you don't want a modular device that the end user can swap chips out. So you just give them a solid like current gen smartphone for corporate or government use.
Because we know Samsung's gonna. I was gonna say Samsung. We know we know Samsung is gonna stick with Tizen for smartphones, even if like modular still gets really big, which I think it will, especially among the geeks, anyways.
Well, and yeah, it'll be a progression. So when Project Aura first drops, you and I'll go out and spend whatever money we need to get a hold of them and play with it and use it, and then it'll slowly trickle out to the masses. There will always be a market, I think, for low-end phones, Android One type stuff in developing countries, because this is a 20, 30, 40-year project. One of the things they mentioned early on in the developer conference, early on in the keynote, was like semiconductor technology and the changes that happened with that in the 70s, and then the changes that happened with like mobile phones and stuff in the 90s and 2000s. Those were kind of slow progressions, the classic S curve, where adoption is really low for a long time as people kind of get used to the idea, technologies are perfected, things get better, and then all of a sudden, in a short period of time, it jumps from 20% to 70 or 80% market penetration. So it'll be a progression. Eventually, I think most things will be modular, and it will be. I'd be excited to see this technology trickle down to not so much tablets, but like laptops and other devices that we use. Being able to swap out the screen on my laptop because my kid got a hold of it and broke the screen, and just being able to slide out the old one, slide it in a new one, using electropermanent magnets, has huge implications for not just our like personal electronic devices, but a lot of other stuff too. But again, we're talking like decades as this stuff is developed. But it all starts this year with a launch in Puerto Rico, so really, really exciting stuff. But we do have some other stuff to talk about. So anything else you want to mention on news? Anything else that I missed this week? Because that happens sometimes.
I don't think so. I think that's everything.
Good. Well, then let's talk about some hardware. Hardware stuff this week was pretty much all rumors. Samsung is working on a round smartwatch that they may or may not announce at MWC. I think, Alex, you jokingly said earlier, yeah, I have that watch already.
Yeah, it's right here.
It has an LG logo on it. Yep.
Oh, actually, does it have an LG? Oh, yeah, it's on the back. Because there's not one on the front, it's just on the back, so I wasn't sure if there actually was one.
Yeah,
but from everything we're seeing, it looks like it's just going to be the G Watch R, but with a thinner bezel, so probably like a hybrid of the 360 and the G Watch R.
So they're just going to get rid of that like diver's watch, bezel on it.
They also said the bezel's going to be like rotating. I'm not sure what that's about. It was in the patent that we covered today. I think they might just do that just because they can.
Well, a rotating bezel, if it has numbers on it, that's a diver's watch. That's what the G Watch R is designed to look like, even though it doesn't actually work that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't see the hardware being much different. The Snapdragon 400 and the limited amount of memory and stuff, it works perfectly.
They might put a bigger battery in there than what the Gear Live has. But then again, that's the other thing, is I don't think it's going to run Android Wear. I think it's going to be Tizen.
And I would be okay with that if they integrated Android Wear notifications like Pebble did a couple weeks ago,
Yep.
That would be cool. I would look at other options if they worked with Android Wear notifications the way Android Wear does with those open APIs. But
I'd also be okay with it if you didn't need a Samsung phone to use it. I mean, I know you can sideload the app and get it on there, but it's just too much work for a smartwatch. You shouldn't have to do all that just to pair your smartwatch up with your phone.
Nope. If I have to jump through those hoops, I'm going with another option. So, but I'm sure it'll look nice. I shouldn't say that. There are a lot of people that hate the way the like the Galaxy Gear and stuff look. So, I'm not sure it'll look nice. You might think it looks nice. We'll see.
I like the way the Gear Fit looked. The curved, the really like rectangular display that they had on there. It looked nice to me.
And those look nice and they feel nice on your wrist because they're contoured, around the shape of your wrist, as opposed to like the round watches like the Moto X and the G Watch R. They're not as bad, but like the square ones, like the G Watch, can get a little uncomfortable because it's just a black slab, like a square slab on your wrist. And it doesn't form around your wrist very well, but.
Yeah, the G Watch is basically a developer's device, basically a Nexus for Android Wear.
Yep. But yeah,
you see how LG changed with the G Watch R, so.
They actually put some design behind it,
and they made it round.
Yep. And we're just getting started with this stuff, man. Android Wear is still. Really in its infancy, and wearables in general.
Even though we have like 6 of them already.
Yeah, but it hasn't opened up yet. Like we haven't seen any from Fossil or any of the other actual watchmakers that have said they're working on Android Wear stuff.
I think that's gonna take a while. I was listening to I think it was Android Essentials podcast with Jerry was saying that he thinks it's gonna be a couple years before Fossil and the rest of them actually make a Android Wear watch. It's probably gonna have to go mainstream before they actually do it, even though they signed up to partner with Google for it.
And that's cool. I mean, they can take their time on it because Android Wear as a platform is still really it's still a baby. We just got the full 5.0 update, but there's still a lot more changes and a lot better stuff coming down the pike. Samsung can add their round watch to that. We also saw some more rumors kind of firming up what we were hearing about the HTC HIMA and the HIMA Ace Plus, which was
it's basically just like the One Max.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised we didn't get one this year or last year for the M8.
Yep. So the HIMA Ace Plus has a 5.5-inch display, Quad HD, Snapdragon 810, 64-bit octa-core processor, 2.3 gigahertz, clocked at 2.3 gigahertz, 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage, 3,000 milliamp hour battery, 20 megapixel camera on the back.
It's nice to see HTC is finally putting in a decent sized battery. Because I think even with the M8, it was like I think it was like 2400, so a little bit bigger than the Moto X.
Yeah, so a bigger battery and a decent camera. This was something they came out with their initial HEMA rumors
I
that
wonder if that display is going to be super LCD
yeah, this rumor
because
didn't say.
I haven't seen a super LCD QHD or panel yet. Only AMOLED and IPS,
Yep,
and they always go super LCD, so that'll be interesting to see.
yep, and these are all still in the rumor stage, but wouldn't be surprised to see HTC bring back the One Max in this HEMA Ace Plus. They got to change the name, man. That name's not going to stick either.
Or the HEMA whatever. That's just the code name, like the M8 was. I think.
Right.
I actually think they should go and just do Desire everything because the one you can only do so far with that branding, but the Desire it's always been popular even before this past year because all of all their phones like in Europe and Asia were all Desire. Back when we had one HTC phone for each carrier that was named differently but was pretty much the same. So the Desire brand has more, I guess, weight than the One brand because it's been around longer. And we've already seen some flagships come out of that, like the Desire I had pretty much the exact same specs as the M8 aside from the camera.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, we'll keep tabs on that as we see some more stuff. HTC will probably announce these devices in March. If history kind of plays itself out, the last couple of years they've announced devices either at the end of February or the beginning of March, and then release them within a couple of weeks after that. So
yeah, the last 2 years they just their own event instead of being at MWC doing it there. I'm wondering if they might just do it at MWC again. I mean, Samsung even is doing theirs at MWC, or at least they did last year. So I wonder
and it would
if
cost
they'll
them a
do it
lot less
then.
money. I mean, they might as well. They're already there. They already have a presence. They might as well.
And they already have the press there too, which is the important part.
Right. So just
The thing is that they have to fight with all the other OEMs to get their spotlight time, basically.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And that's the big reason why Samsung started doing their own thing instead of announcing big stuff at CES, MWC, IFA. But I mean, whatever works, I guess.
Yep. So this stuff that's happening in a couple hours. I almost said tomorrow again. I guess technically it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's in like 3 hours. This Xiaomi stuff, the Mi 5, and there's a Mi 5 Plus. We're seeing some rumors on.
Yeah, the Mi 5 is a 6-inch display, and then there's a Mi 5 Plus. I know it.
The Mi 5 Plus is a 6-inch.
The one earlier this week was Mi 5 was a 6-inch one, so I guess nobody really knows.
I thought the Mi 5 was like a 5 or 5.2 inch, something like that.
It should be. But yeah, it's got a 6-inch Quad HD display, 4 gigs of RAM, 16 megapixel OIS. They should have grabbed that 20.7.
Yeah, they should have. But that stuff should be announced here shortly. And then Oppo is going to be announcing the U3 soon. And that's got a camera with a 4x optical zoom, 5.9-inch 1080p display, MediaTek processor. But I'm mentioning all these, and I wanted to talk about some of these new like high-end Chinese phones, and just keep dibs on them because they're coming to the States. I wrote an article this week about ZTE and Alcatel making a push into the U.S. We've talked about Xiaomi and some of these other companies coming over from China into the U.S. We're going to be seeing this a whole lot more and seeing a whole lot more of these phones.
Yeah, Xiaomi's going to have issues when they decide to come over here. unless they change how their devices are, because they're pretty much a straight rip-off of Apple. I mean, if you thought the original Galaxy S looked like the iPhone, that's nothing compared to their phones.
Right. It's not a basically an iPhone shell running Android like some of the other Chinese underground like Chinese stuff that
Yeah.
you couldn't tell the difference. It even has Apple logo on the back. They're not that bad, but you're right. Like they're so a lot of these companies are first kind of stepping out into Xiaomi already has into India, into parts of Europe, even like Northern Africa, to kind of get a global presence. Um,
I know the issue with a lot of them is the fact that the Google was it mobile services, they gotta have that certified, and with Google being blocked in China, it's kind of tough to do. So that's why a lot of these phones, if you buy them and like import them from China, it won't have the Google Play Store on there. You have to install it yourself. And that's basically what Mizu told me the last time I was in Beijing for their event. Is I asked them, when are these phones going to come to the U.S. and that was pretty much the answer. Is they're having issues with GMS and trying to get that over there, get that
yep,
certified.
yep. Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in. When these companies want to branch out, they want to try new stuff, and they want to expand
But
globally.
the government holds them back.
Yep, yep. And literally, it's when Google services and that stuff's all blocked, you can't access it over any kind of network. They really don't have very many options. They'd have to branch out, set up headquarters in another country, and start working out of those other offices.
That's what I think is going to have to happen because Huawei and ZTE both have a U.S. It's almost pretty much another company because there's ZTE USA, which is pretty much a separate company from ZTE, and I think Huawei is probably the same way. I'm thinking that's probably the only way we're going to see Mizu and Xiaomi and some of the other ones over here, more than just, buying it off of Amazon and it might work on our LTE network. It probably won't,
Yep.
Although, Mizu does have some Ubuntu phones coming.
Yeah, and they're trying different stuff, with those Ubuntu Touch phones, and
They have, I think, two. They're being announced on the 27th. Yeah, because there's that M1 Note Mini that's for China. Then there's two Ubuntu phones.
and some of them are messing with Firefox OS too.
Yep.
So there's other options besides Android.
Yeah, those Ubuntu ones we should get hands on at Mobile Congress because I'm pretty sure they're going to be there. At least last time I talked to them, they were.
And most of those are low-end phones that are going to Asia or Africa. Particularly Firefox OS is heavily focused on developing countries. So
It's basically, I know what I want to say, but I just can't get the words. It's basically just like a web browser. It's kind of like Chrome OS. That's all web.
Oh yeah, Firefox OS is actually an HTML5 based operating system. Everything is all web apps.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I just couldn't get the words.
Yeah, no worries, man. You're right. The whole OS is built on HTML5. So
that's why you've got phones with like 256 megabytes of RAM, and they run really well. I mean, Lollipop can run on half a gig of RAM, 512 megs, but it doesn't run as smooth as Firefox OS does on 256.
Yep. Cool. So we'll be talking more about some Chinese phones as this year progresses. That'll be something that we kind of mention and bring up more.
Yeah, they have like 4 events in China this week, or this month, I mean.
And they're making some great devices. So
Motorola's over there too, having an event.
Well, yeah, with Lenovo. So,
but their stuff we already have. Basically, the Nexus 6 is the Moto X Pro, then the Moto X and Moto G.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. We didn't talk about that last week, did we?
I don't know. It probably got lost in all the CES stuff because it came out during CES.
Yeah. So if we didn't talk about it last week, we'll just mention it here. Motorola's got an event where they're announcing three devices: the Moto X and the Moto G or the Moto E.
Moto G.
Yep. The Moto X,
Moto
the Moto
E,
G,
Moto E might go over there, but they didn't put it in their press release.
and then the Moto X Pro, which is essentially the Nexus 6, just without the Nexus branding.
Yeah, it's this and without Google stuff as well, which led me to think of what app store they're gonna use because can't use the Google Play Store in China. I'm guessing they're gonna use whatever Lenovo uses, and I don't even really know what they use.
I couldn't tell you, man. But yeah, that's what they'll load on it.
Yeah, because all the Lenovo stuff I get are tablets, and they're sold here, so they have Google Play on it.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's a good segue into some software and apps. The biggest thing in software this week was this big hullabaloo over Google no longer working on security patches for WebView in devices that run Jelly Bean or earlier versions of Android. So WebView, if you're not familiar with what WebView is it's basically WebKit. So like the Safari browser on iOS, it's what Android used to use and still uses if you're like in an app and the app wants to take you to the web. It may not necessarily open your Chrome browser or whatever other browser like Firefox that you might use. If it just pulls open a web page or a web view, that's WebView. What came out 2 days ago was a note from Google, some developers at Google that said they don't regularly support or release updates for specifically security patches for WebView on devices that are older, that run Jelly Bean or older versions of Android. And the internet kind of blew up, like, oh my gosh, there's over 1 billion devices. It's like 40% of Android devices are still running Jelly Bean, or is it 60%?
I think it might be 60.
Yeah, it's over half, so it's got to be 60%. Of devices, of Android devices in the world are still running Jelly Bean or older. And how could Google just forget about those devices, leave them all unsecure? There was a security flaw that was discovered, specifically in WebView, that can allow malicious code to be injected into your device. And if you use a browser like Chrome or Firefox for Android, Google stopped using WebView. Firefox doesn't use it anymore either. Moving forward, so that on KitKat and basically just the versions of KitKat that are out right now, Google is still releasing security patches. In Android 5.0 Lollipop, they've actually completely removed WebView, and they're using a version of Chromium for those instances when an app wants to pull open a web page and it doesn't need to open a full browser. So that is kind of taken care of in newer versions of Android already. But it leaves all these 1 billion users with no security patches. And so people were all up in arms. How could Google do this? And that's a valid concern on the surface until you stop to think about the fact that Jelly Bean is over a year old, almost a year and a half old. We've had KitKat for almost a year and a half. It launched in November of 2013. If manufacturers, so the argument is, or the complaint is, Google is not supporting this stuff, but people aren't stopping to think that there's a manufacturer in the middle. There are carriers in the middle that have to approve these software updates. So Google could release a patch for this WebView vulnerability, and then it has to get approved by the manufacturers, then it has to get approved by the carriers, then it can be pushed out to your device. If your device is running Jelly Bean, it's either a low-end device or it's at least a year plus old. Like, Google's already fixed this problem with the KitKat update, and the fact that your device isn't running KitKat is the actual problem. It's not the fact that Google isn't supporting software that's a year and a half old anymore. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically that. There was a big stink, and the focus is on the wrong issue, in my opinion. I don't know, Alex, did I communicate that effectively?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I was just gonna say that we'll probably see WebView and, well, actually, probably won't. But if they're still using it, we probably see it in the Play Store soon.
Right. Well, and they've switched to Chromium, so we won't see it anymore. So, yeah, if you've read any scare stories this week about how Google is not supporting this on old devices, there's your answer.
Yeah, and we went through this actually back in November when Lollipop was announced, and we found out the WebView was gone. So it's not even really anything new.
Nope. And Google, so if I'm remembering correctly, in KitKat, they've moved to Chromium, I think, for those instances. They're not using WebView. But it's still running within the app. So like when an app wants to go to the web and it doesn't send out a request to open your browser, instead of pulling up WebView, it pulls up Chromium, but it's all still kind of running within that app. In Lollipop, it's its own instance. So it's been pulled out, and it's a separate piece that makes it easier to update. So moving forward, we're not going to have any security issues with this stuff. The problem is that there's still a billion people. 60% of Android devices are running Jelly Bean, and those devices at this point are probably not going to get updated. It's just the way it works. It's a year and a half old. They're probably not going to get updates. Or I shouldn't say a year and a half. It's a year and 3 months, 4 months, almost a year and a half. But yeah, so kind of put some fears to rest, hopefully. Shine a little light on the situation, because it's ridiculous to get all upset about that. If you have a Jelly Bean device, you're probably up for an upgrade if you're on a carrier contract.
Or close to it.
Yep. So go get a new device. If you're not on a contract, save your pennies and go get a new device.
Go get a Sony device.
Yeah, go give some money to Sony so they stay in business. So that's that. Don't need to really rant on that too much, but I thought it was pretty ridiculous that as soon as I saw the first headline come out, oh, Google's not supporting this stuff anymore, this is a big deal, we even ran a story like that. Like, come on. Alex, like you said, it was announced with Lollipop that these changes were coming, and that was months ago, so this wasn't new information. What else? So we were talking about HTC and some of the hardware rumors that we've been seeing from them. We also saw a Lollipop roadmap, a Lollipop update roadmap leak out.
Yeah. When I saw this, I didn't realize how many phones they had released in the last 2 years. It's basically everything newer than the M7.
And some of the stuff was overseas, but they also said that they weren't going to be releasing as many devices, and they've released a bunch. Well,
technically, they still didn't release as many as they had before the 1 series. I'd say before the M7. There was an HTC employee that was on Reddit for AMA. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they said I think it was 2011, the last year before the M7, might have been 2012. But they released 84 different phones, different variants. That includes, like the Evos, the Dread Incredible, all that stuff, even all the ones in China. That's a lot. And to see it down to, what's this, about 20, 25 over the course of 2 years, that's a huge difference. And probably in
Yeah.
a good way.
Yep. You are absolutely correct.
I mean, the One Remix isn't on here, but the M8 Mini is, and it's pretty much the same thing. So I think they're just counting that as the same phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So the big ones on here, the M7 and the M8 should have the update this quarter.
The M8 is actually getting it now. The developer and unlocked ones are. So carrier ones will probably be next month, depending on how long it takes to get approved.
Yep. The Desire I, the Butterfly 2 are next quarter. The One Max will be in Q3, as well as like the Desire 816 or 816. Some of the Chinese ones. The One M8 Mini is in the third quarter. So, and then like the Desire 610, the 510, the One Mini, the original One Mini will be in either Q3 or Q4. So, yep, it's coming. It's coming soon. It's always good to see these roadmaps, just so people can people get antsy. Hey, when's my update coming? Well, now you know.
Yeah, even with the roadmap, that's not going to help. People
yeah, sure.
are going to ask. And they always ask, like us. It's like, we don't know what's going on over there.
Yeah, those are always fun emails to get. When is my phone getting X update? Sorry, we're not Google.
And a lot of the time, they ask a phone that we've never heard of. It's like, is that really a phone?
Right.
Usually it's a Samsung one, too, so.
Yep, something crazy from overseas.
It's just crazy to see, phones still getting Lollipop in Q4 pretty much a year after it was announced.
Yeah, and it's also kind of crazy to think that that's better than it used to be. It's it's kind of sad.
The Note 3 is still getting KitKat, or it was when Lollipop was announced.
Yep.
So there's that.
A year later, and that's a flagship. That's not like the Desire 510.
It's like the flagship of all flagships.
Yep.
And that's mostly the carrier variant too that was late getting it.
Yeah, and so we were talking just a second ago about carriers and manufacturers kind of being in the middle. It's not always Google. Most of the time, it's not Google. Google wants updates rolled out to these devices right away, but manufacturers have to skin them. Carriers have to approve the updates, and
well, they don't have to skin them; they choose to skin them.
True, very true.
I mean, look at Motorola, ZTE as well. The ZTE USA goes stock Android, but ZTE in China, they have their own skin.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be rolling out to HTC devices soon, as well as a lot of other devices, but specifically HTC. We saw that roadmap this week. What else? Google Classroom. So these last two I just want to touch on real quickly because I know we're running short on time. But Google released an app called Google Classroom, and this actually came out today, that will help teachers and students connect. The app is designed to help teachers create assignments and collect assignments, send out assignments to students. Students can keep track of what they have to do, kind of on a calendar, like with a due date. They can turn in assignments and they can even start doing work on some assignments right in the app, just to kind of streamline the learning process. And the app looks really slick. It's all material, and Google has made a big push with like Google Apps for Education and all the Chromebook stuff in schools. And and this is just another piece in that puzzle. Google Classroom. It looks kind of cool, man.
Yep, the app looks really nice.
And then the other thing was Google Translate. This was officially updated with WordLens. Last May, Google bought a company called WordLens. What WordLens did is provide like real-time translation of written languages. So if you saw a sign, you were traveling in another country, a language that you didn't speak, you saw a sign on the road, you could pull up the app, it would use your camera, you just held up your phone, and it would see the written words there and translate them right there on the screen for you. All happened in real time, like automatically. It's a really cool service. You could use it for like menus at restaurants, street signs, whatever. And Google bought that last May and then rolled it into the Translate app. Actually, today they announced that, and it's rolling out now. It translates English to and from French, German, Italian, Russian, Portuguese, and Spanish. So those 6 languages into or out of English. Doesn't work like you can't go French to German. It's just English to French or French to English.
They need to add a Mandarin to it.
Yes, yeah, and I'm sure they're working to add more languages.
Good thing Spanish is there for Mobile Congress.
Yeah, you can use the heck out of this thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what I was saying. Mandarin with all the trips to China I'm making now.
Yeah, yeah. But it's really cool because it works almost instantly. You just hold your phone over a menu at a restaurant, and when you look at your phone, it shows it in English. When you look back at the menu, it shows it in Spanish. It's wild.
They had it for Glass like last year. I'm sure you remember when Keith was here. He was showing it off on Glass.
Yep.
And surprised it took this long to get to the actual app, but it's here.
Yep. The Google Translate app also has real-time conversation translations. So if you're talking to someone in another language, in Spanish or Russian or Italian, one of those other 6 languages, used to be the Translate app was kind of clunky. Like you'd have to push the microphone button, say something in English, it would translate it, you could show it to the other person in their language, then they would have to push the microphone button, say something, show it back to you, you could read it, then you push the microphone button to say something again. Now Translate will do all that in real time. You push the microphone button once, you start talking. It translates as you talk. The other person can talk normally as well. It translates as they talk. You don't have to keep pushing the microphone button to switch users or switch whoever's speaking at the moment. All that happens in real time. It's fluid. So pretty big update for anybody that travels or deals with multiple languages that you may not know, because now you can just have a conversation, and it's not nearly as awkward. So.
Yeah, I've never actually used Google Translate like when I've been in China. I've only used it when I was making that Weibo account for AH.
Yeah.
Because some parts of the site it won't translate unless you highlight it and right click and it'll translate it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't figure out where we could put in our URL or where to do all this other stuff. All I could figure out was where our name was.
Well, I mean, hey.
Longest sign-up process ever.
Right. It's still a work in progress.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's a pretty big update to Translate. So let's quickly talk about what's new in your Android world.
I have a big speaker. It's
Yes.
the Ultimate Ears Mega Boom. It's the bigger version of this one that came out. Was it last year? I got it last year. I'm not sure if it came out last year. But I compared the two of these together, and size-wise, it's huge. And it puts out a lot of sound too. I usually have it pretty low, and it's still pretty loud. Um, Battery life is pretty good. I haven't actually charged, and I think I've been using it for about 15, 16 hours throughout the week. And it hasn't. Actually, I can check on my phone with the UE app and see what the battery is. Hopefully, it don't take too long to do that. What else do I have? I don't think I showed off these Nexus 6 cases before.
I don't remember seeing them, no.
These are the Varus, the Ultra Slim something case. This is the smoke one, then we have the white one as well. I like the smoke one better on the back.
You just reviewed that on the site too, didn't you?
A couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Also have this little guy, very little guy. He's like the size of a business card. It's a 1500 milliamp battery from the Scipio. Has a USB built in, and then this is a adapter for Lightning. The Lightning
nice.
for Apple.
Yeah.
You just stick that on the end of the USB, and you're all set. So
That's kind of cool.
It's not gonna charge up your phone like completely, but it'll give you enough juice to get through the day. And it's small and lightweight, so it's not like you're carrying I don't think my line fuel. Oh, I got this one over here. So it's not like you're carrying this in your pocket all day. Carrying something smaller.
Jeez, yeah.
I think that's it now. I have the new Dell Chromebook 13 coming, I think Friday.
I'm jealous, man.
So
That's the yeah. I'm excited about that guy.
that's the first Dell Chromebook I've ever used. Because the 11-inch was on back order forever, so we never got a review in it.
Yep. So that's the 13. Are we getting the 15, the new 15-inch one from that was announced at CES too?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's not ready yet.
Cool. I'm excited to see that one too, just because it's the first 15-inch Chromebook.
Oh yeah, I got these headphones too. The Bose Sound True. I think that's the whole name of them. Picked them up from Best Buy over Christmas break. They're pretty nice. Bose always has like a really nice carrying case, and this is the leather one that they send with these. Nothing really inside, but it's it's just a nice leather carrying case. I really like Bose headphones. A lot of people say they're trash. I haven't had any issues with them. The other ones I had were Bose as well, and I bought those in like 2010. So it was about time to upgrade.
Yeah. Well, and you've always talked about really liking Bose headphones, so.
Yeah, I want to try some newer ones too, but I still really like Bose.
Well, cool. Anything else?
I think that's it.
That's pretty much all I have new this week, man, is headphones.
Like 20 of them.
Yeah, all of a sudden a whole bunch of stuff that I ordered started showing up. I still have this Kyocera DuraForce phone that I got to finish that review on. But this week, new stuff. I got the Sennheiser HD 439 headphones, which sound good. I mean, you can't really go wrong with Sennheiser. They are supposed to be extended bass response, like a bass boost. They're really not bassy. If you've ever worn Sennheiser headphones, it's a really even mix. They're kind of warm, and these are closed back headphones, but it's still kind of an open sound. They have more bass than some of the other Sennheiser headphones I've tried, but they're kind of plasticky. They still sound great, but they're just kind of plasticky. not nearly as comfortable as the HD 598s that I've had. I also got some Sony. These are the MDR 10Rs. So these are, again, kind of bass heavy. They're light and they're really comfortable. They're super comfortable to wear. They also come with, now the Sennheiser ones come with a adapter, so you can plug it into like a 1/4-inch jack. These Sony ones come with the standard 3.5 millimeter cable, but they also come with one that has a microphone and a button for like answering phone calls too, which you don't get with the Sennheiser ones. So, and then the Sony ones come with this pouch. The Sony sends with them.
That's
I don't.
big pouch.
Well, this top flaps over.
Yeah, it looks really big.
It is. It is. They're not compact. They don't fold up. Like I said, they're light and they're really comfortable, but they're not small. That's one thing I liked about these. Are like my go-to. I love these. The Sony MDR V6s. They fold up, so you can like fold them up real compact if you need to carry them.
Mm-hmm.
And these things sound amazing. Like these are my favorite. But yeah, so the MDR 10Rs are a little more bass heavy. The mix is actually a little muddy, probably compared to the V6s, which are like studio monitor headphones, and the Sennheiser ones. And then these guys I got into are the Velodyne V-True. These things they're giant, they're massive, they're metal, they're heavy. But they're really, really well made. Like the build quality is phenomenal. Double like speakers, most of them plug in on one side, or like the MDR V6s don't even unplug. Really nice, like blue cable. It's not just a plastic; it's like a woven fiber cable. These ones also come with like 2 lengths of the headphone deal. Really nice leather and metal. These sound really good, except the bass is way too boomy. Like it's really loud. They sound great. The highs and mids, like it's a really good mix. Everything is there, but then the bass is like really pushed way forward. But they should sound really good and be built really well. Velodyne sells them for like $400. I didn't pay that much for them, but I found them on a deal. But so I'm going to be reviewing those headsets too, just because it's kind of a newfound passion for me. So if I can pick these up on a deal and review them, and some other people can see what they would like out of some of these headsets, it's exciting for me. But that's all the new stuff for me too. So that'll do it for the Android Headline Show, episode 91. You can find us on Twitter at Android Headline without the S, on Facebook and Google+. Wherever you like to get your Android news, we'll be there talking about phones, talking about accessories. Shoot us an email if there's stuff you want us to talk about. We've got some other interviews in the works, some new people to get on this show. But if there's something specific you want us to talk about, or somebody specific you'd like us to interview, let us know. Like I said, drop us an email or a comment on Twitter or Google+. We'd love to hear from you. So we should be back next week with Nick. Should be good. We haven't had him on in a couple weeks, so I'm excited to have him back. But Alex, it's always a blast, man. Thanks for hanging out.
Yep, no problem. See everybody next week.